So today is Matthew 25, verses 14 to 30. It is the 58th week in Matthew that we're in Matthew, so we're coming to the end of it. The passage today is on a man who goes on a journey. We'll just use that. The parable of the talents. So as we can read this all together. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you did not no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have had no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him, and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will be given, and he will have abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, yeah. The previously to this, there was 2 previous parables, if I remember correctly, prior to this one, and all of them have kind of the same theme: the idea that there is a time coming when Jesus, or what Christ is trying to relay, is this idea that there is a time coming when he is going to be leaving and his disciples would be without him, and then his second coming. And it's not always all 3 of them, but it's kind of that gist of the idea. When you go all the way back to Matthew chapter 14, it's kind of when Jesus first begins this idea that he begins with this idea, I'm going to die. That he's going to have his death and he's going to no longer be. And as time goes on, he continues to add more to the puzzle. He doesn't just give them the whole story right away, that this is all going to happen, but he starts slowly. And finally we come to this culmination, and he still doesn't quite tell them the whole story, not until after his death and resurrection does he finally tell them that they would have the Holy Spirit with them, that he would send their Spirit. So in this thing, he's kind of going to be more saying, I'm going to be leaving you, you're going to be on your own almost, instead of this idea that there's a Spirit. And there's to some extent you could say with the talents, since he's given them property, that he would have the Spirit, but he hasn't explicitly told them that. In the passage previous to this, that was last Sunday, verse 13, it ended with, Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. And then it goes in, for it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and trusted them to his property. For it being basically, we don't know the time or the hour, the second coming. We don't know when it's going to happen. But it is going to happen. There's this imminent return. And this master who goes on a journey, and he entrusts to them property. He's going to give to them part of his property. And like every parable, there is more to the parable. It's a story trying to relay a message, but there's a underlying meaning. So when Jesus is saying that the master will leave property, so Jesus will leave property to his servants, his children, the church. And there's kind of two ways of seeing it. There is one, the individual thing that has been given to each individual, and also the corporate. It's similar to in previous chapter, in a couple, I don't remember exactly where it was, which chapter, maybe 23, this idea where the church will be given to that he would give to the church the keys to the kingdom of heaven. It's this thing that God is giving to the church, God is giving to each individual property. It's almost like I'm leaving and I've started a mission. Is this idea of the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven on earth. I've started. Now I'm kind of giving it to you so that you will take care of it. And so that's kind of how I'm seeing that this property, what it's trying to relay, that the church, each of us would be given, is kind of, we are entrusted something. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. The word talent means a weight or a sum of money. It is a large sum of money. And this time it would have been about 6,000 denarii, which is about 20 years worth of income. So the average labor one talent was about 20 years worth of income. So if you think today between 30,000 to 50,000 is the average income, you would be looking at $3 million to $5 million is 1 talent. No. 600,000 to, this would be, the 5 talents would be the 5 million. So it would be between 3 million to 5 million. So it's a large sum of money. He's not just giving them a small sum. This individual, the first individual, is given 100 years worth of income. Like, here, take care of it. So, yeah. And so here it means talents. The Greek word talenton means means a weight, a sum of money. Well, the church has, for 2,000 years, has also, when interpreting this, has said it is a gift. It is an ability. It is like a natural ability, the way we understand English word talent today. And the reason we understand the English word talent today is because in the 1400s, there is this shift in the English language to begin to use, or in the 14th century, 1300s, 1400s, Middle Ages we'll go. There is this shift in English language to begin to use the word talent metaphorically to refer to a natural ability, to refer to a skill. And that is the reason the word talent today is because of this passage, because Christians understood this passage to mean something God has given you, a natural ability, a gift. Similarly, other words change. It's just the evolution of words. So eventually it changes to that. And he's given this man 5 talents, and once he returns, the servant, he comes to the servant, and the servant says, I took what you've given me, I've traded it, and I have made 5 talents more. I have what you've given me, there's sum of money, you've given me $5 million, now it is 10 million in total. It is doubled. And the master responds, well done, good and faithful servant, you've been faithful over little, I will set you over much more. It's this idea, the master's like, this is a little bit. So it kind of understand that the master is viewing this as a small amount of money. So the master has way more. And he's telling the servant that you will be given even more than what you've been endowed, and you will enter into the joy of your master. Well, entering into the joy of your master at the surface, I think, is heaven. We enter into joy, but I do think there's something more to it. In 1 Peter 1:4, Peter says this, by which he has granted to us his precious and very great promises, so that through them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in this world because of sinful desire. That we are somehow, when we get to heaven, we will become partakers, we will become in participation of the divine nature. To me, this is a mystery. I don't fully understand it, and if Jason wants to tackle this you don't want to, in the discussion period, it's a mystery. I don't know what this is all going to look like, and I'm okay with this being a mystery until we get there. But the idea that we somehow will rule with Christ almost is this idea that I will give to you my property. You've been faithful over a little bit. I will even give you more on that side to be responsible of. Is to, I don't know, it's a great thing. It's an exciting thing that we do serve, that we will somehow be in participation with Christ in a mystical way. That I'll leave it at that. It's a mystery. I don't know the full extent of that. He comes to the, when he had talked to the second one was the second person who had the same response. I don't have the slide for the second one, but he had the same response. It was no different. You will, well done, good and faithful servant. You will enter into the joy of your master. But he comes to the third one, and the third one says, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you scattered no seed, so I was afraid. And I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. Now, if you didn't have this section, just think of the master in the previous part of this chapter. The master's given, at this point, 8 talents away. So we're talking 160 years worth of income for the common person. This is a huge amount of money. Has given it away to his servants. And when the master returns, he doesn't say, and the 2 servants come forth and say, this is what we've created. He doesn't say, thank you, give me my money back. He actually says, I will give you now more. Does the master remind you of a hard man? Does he remind you of a man who reaps where he doesn't sow? Does he remind you of a man who is almost unjust? This does not sound of a man who is merciful, who is gracious. Sounds kind of like a man who you don't want to deal with. He reaps where he doesn't sow. He takes what isn't his. It doesn't really portray who the master is in the previous chapters, in the previous verses, not chapters. And the master responds, you wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have scattered no seed. Now they put a question mark, even though the way the sentence is set up, it doesn't feel like a question. They put a question mark there because it is kind of a question. You think this is your perspective. You think that I am this. And when you look at the next part, then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. It's kind of the sarcasm of the master. If this is who you think I am, then you would have at least put it in with the bankers. Well, in the Jewish system, this would have been an offense. This idea you would put money into the bankers and draw interest, because Moses in Exodus and Leviticus tells very clearly, you do not collect interest. If I give you $10,000 and you repay me, you give me $10,000. Now that is old civil law, but this is still something the Jewish people would have understood, to my understanding. So it's kind of this is not who I am. You are making this up. If I would have been that person, I would have put it in with the bankers. I could have done something else. So this idea that the master is a hard man, I think, isn't an accurate portrayal. But it asks us a question. I think it was A.W. Tozer who said, the most important thing you will know, the most important thing about you, I'm thinking it was Tozer, it might have been someone else, most important thing about you is your belief, is how you view God, or something like that. Slight paraphrase, I think. But is how we view God, how we view the master. The second man is viewing the master in a very harsh way. The master is the man with a white robe, a white beard, and a stick to hit you idea. The first ones aren't. If God has a stick, it's a stick like the shepherds have, where it has this hook on the end where he puts it around the neck to bring you closer, not to drive you away. There's a atheist YouTuber who has a philosophy degree or something, and he's gaining kind of a larger gathering, as he continues in his, he just started a couple of years ago, but he's gaining a pretty large following, and he debates Christians and stuff. And one time he was making the argument that if there was enough evidence to believe in God, he would serve him. He would love to serve him. It's kind of, but I had talked with someone else who I know who's an atheist, and I asked him that question: if you had enough evidence to believe in God, would you believe in him? Would you serve him? His answer was no. How can a God who is unjust, is a hard man? If you look at history, all the death that has happened in history, the death in childbirth, it was so high until modern science. If God was this fair man, if God was a merciful person, he wouldn't do this. So for this reason, I wouldn't serve God. Now, it's a little out of context because the way it appears, the person here is someone who at least seems, he's a servant of the master. He at least claims, and if you take it out of the parable and put it into our life, it's a person who wants to or claims to be a Christian. He claims to follow the master. He may not be a disciple, but he's at least claiming to be one. And he's been given this, and he's been given a lesser talent. It's this idea in 1 Corinthians, as we're going through 1 Corinthians, it was in the chapter 2 or 3 it was, where Paul says, I wish I could have given you solid food, but I gave you milk. It's this thing that I give to you what is to your ability. Not everyone has solid. And so God gives to each person their ability, and this person is given little, maybe because he knew, the master knew, he wasn't going to be barely able to handle this. And he proves it. You couldn't even handle this because you hid your talent. This is a list of the gifts I could find that are all in the scriptures. This is more spiritual gifts and other gifts: faith, mercy, love, and gifts that are not especially spiritual gifts in the sense that they are abilities. Not all of them. Some of them are abilities and things, but some others are like love, mercy, and faith. Something that God has given each Christian. And to some extent, you could say, like faith, He's given some individuals more faith than others. But the others are then more the ministry ones, the things that each person, almost an ability. And how do we view these gifts? Do we rank them? I hope not. Are we happy for them? And what do we do when we have them? I hope we remain humble. But there's kind of two ways that it goes. If you've been given a gift, do you, like the person that was given 5 talents, he's given a large sum. He could very easily have said, I've been given the most. I'm the most important in the room. The second one could have said, well, at least I'm not that person, the one with the 1 talent. But I'm also not that person, so there's slight jealousy going on. But they don't. It's not and they understand it's not a competition. And Jesus shows this with the master's thing, that he awards both of them. He doesn't say, I really like you more than this person, I really like him more than this person. It's very much this idea, I'm going to give both of you are welcome into the joy of your master. So I hope we don't, I hope we don't inflate them to the point where we think we have gained them, but we don't become a competition where we try to compete with each other's gifts, because each person has been given a different one. There's also a thing where people try to there can be this human tendency, especially in conservative Christianity more. I've seen this idea where we try to be humble with our gifts, because we've seen where people haven't been humble with their gifts. And we're like, we definitely don't want to be that person, so we diminish the gifts we have. Where we're like, yeah, I have this gift, but it's not that great. And that's not good either, because God is the one who gives the gift. And in some way, if we do that, we're insulting the master. In the prodigal son story, The prodigal son is given his inheritance. He said the youngest son wants his inheritance. He leaves, spends his inheritance, decides to come back. The father kills the fattest calf and gives him the best seat in the house. I mean, he throws a party for him. And the oldest son is like, nope, this is not good. And the father is like, I've given you everything that is left. You're the oldest son. You're going to already get more than the youngest son to begin with. But now he's already been given his. You get everything, but it's still not enough. Similarly, Christ gives us our gift, and if we diminish the gift, we insult the master. But if we say it's not enough, we also insult the master. We insult Christ. We insult the Father. If we don't view the gift in its correct manner, you insult the Father. The third person, the third man who's given his gift, goes and hides his gift. And you'd say it just wasn't worth it. He could have just viewed it, well, my gift's just not valuable enough, so I'm going to hide it. That also insults the master. If you hide it, it's not a great gift. There was some time ago, there was a video that had surfaced on YouTube or somewhere of a young lady who wanted a car. And her dad decides he's going to buy her a car. So he goes and he buys her a car, and they walk her out the front steps. They're covering her eyes, open her eyes, and it's a BMW. Now, I would have been excited. I was just given a BMW out of the blue. But she wasn't. The reason being, it was the wrong color. It was red and not blue. She wanted a blue car, so she threw a fit. And it's almost comical watching the video, but it's also maddening because it's like the entitlement. You didn't deserve this. And on top of that, you're insulting your father. Your father went out of the way to buy the car. He didn't have to. He could have bought you an old jalopy. But he didn't. He bought you a nice car. Also, when we hide our talent, we do disservice to the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God. Each person's given a talent. And we shouldn't hide them. We should use them. Even if it's maybe not the most polished talent. Continue to use them. One of the things that I can't think of his name, Francis Chan's book, one of the books, and I don't remember quite the name of the book, but in one of his books he says that one of the biggest shames in the Christian church is the amount of times we don't have the talents of each individual used within the church. And a lot of times it's for various different reasons. Sometimes we just allow people to remain lazy, and other times the church gets to a size where they're not needed in the gathering anymore. And both are a problem. I do think it is, as C.S. Lewis at one point said, I use this word not because out of ire, but because it's the truth. It's damnable not to do it. If you don't use your talent, if the church either hides the talent or the person hides the talent, it's a shame. The church will suffer. 1 Corinthians, Paul talks of this idea that if any of the gifts aren't being used, the church will suffer. The body suffers. What gifts have we been given? What gifts have you been given? And are you using them or aren't you? Jason?